Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing a GeForce RTX 5060 Ti 16GB GPU in Cyberpunk 2077. This one is the Palette Infinity 3 version of the card. I'm running it with the latest Nvidia drivers, and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power-Ups, GPU-Z, and over on the left, I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 7 9800X 3D and 32GB of RAM, and the CPU is overkill, but it's just so we don't bottleneck the card, and also because this is my test bench. But if you have any CPU that doesn't bottleneck this card, you'll achieve the same FPS. So let's get into it, shall we? And here we go, let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 1080p resolution, utilizing the Ultra Settings preset, but let's disable FSR. I don't know why it enables FSR by default on the presets. I mean, we have an Nvidia GPU, and this game's implementation of DLSS is amazing, and yet it insists on enabling FSR. Anyway, everything else is set to the Ultra preset aside from these options, which, well, is just film grains, motion blurs, chromatic aberrations, and let's try this out. Okay, so we're starting this off at native 1080p resolution, and the ultra settings are looking really good and getting pretty high frames as well. 100 plus frames per second here at the beginning. That's really smooth, of course. The game looks great, but I have a little bit of a complaint here. Did I actually hit the police car? Yes, I think so. All right. I have a little bit of a complaint in terms of the sharpness right now. I am using a 1080p display here, 27-inch one, which is pretty big, but still, it looks a bit muddy because of the DLAA implementation of this game that you can't really disable. However, if you enable some DLAA, for example, the game will look way better in terms of that sharpness, you know? But anyway, let's keep on going like this. Finish the little benchmark run, kill Bob. Goodbye, Bob! There we go. Oh, beautiful stuff. Is he dead? No, this is Bob. Okay, we killed somebody else and not Bob. We're only taking like 1 HP off of him at a time. Well, this time it didn't even take any HP off of him. Anyway, I got more stuff to do, Bob, so just gonna keep on going here. It's still without ray tracing, of course. That looks really good in this game, but yeah, to start this off, I wanted to aim for a high refresh rate experience. It's very smooth, no stuttering. VRAM is obviously enough, even on the 8GB version of this the 5060 Ti here. It won't have a problem in this game, at these settings at least. So yeah, I'm glad to see this. But let's enable some DLSS, and we got the transformer model right here, which looks awesome. I'm actually going to bump up the sharpness to 50% and start with utilizing some DLAA. What this does is it keeps the resolution scale set to 100%, so it's still 1080p native resolution here, but it's applying the anti-aliasing from DLSS on top of it, and this makes the FPS drop by quite a bit, as you can see, but it's so much sharper. I'm not sure if this comes through very well on YouTube because of the compression and so on, but this is night and day. This is how a game is supposed to look like at native resolution, not the blurry mess that we just witnessed with TAA, anti-aliasing, or temporal anti-aliasing actually. So, really solid experience here. Goodbye, Bob. Once again, I don't understand. How does that little chair always save your ass? Oh, bastards. Okay, oh boy. Oh, well, we hit Bob again over there. 26 HP off of him this time around. Okay, let's keep on going here, though. A little bit of a fight going on, you know. Some shots fired by the police. I'm only doing God's work, you know. I'm killing Bob. Bobby's a demon. But, yeah, DLAA stuff. Very good indeed. It doesn't drop from 60 FPS, it doesn't slow down, it doesn't stutter whatsoever. My dog is barking, I'm not sure if you guys can hear that, but he's very annoying sometimes when he sees a cat. If you want good sharpness out of your picture here in Cyberpunk, this is definitely the way to go. I really like the DLAA implementation here with the transformer model and DLSS4. It makes all of the difference to me. And if you don't utilize ray tracing and only set it to the ultra settings, which still looks really good, you can achieve those 60 plus FPS all of the time. How about if you want higher FPS without using frame generation? I will try some frame generation later, but let's try it with DLSS quality first. And as you can see, to my eyes at least, my friends, what is going on, guys? But hello. To my eyes, this looks better than TAA previously with native resolution. Aside from the smoke, which is a little bit pixelated, everything else looks amazing. It's really sharp and detailed, and the game is now running at 720p resolution, being upscaled to 1080p. It should look terrible. It sometimes does in other titles, and if you use the CNN version of DLSS instead of the Transformer model, it looks bad at 1080p with DLSS quality. But here, if you dislike TAA, if you still want a higher than 100 FPS experience, and if you don't mind having that thought that you are playing at 720p resolution, where did you come from? My engine. Is that my engine? But hello, engine. If you can get past the thought that this is 720p being upscaled to 1080p, it actually does look good. And it plays really well, 130 frames per second. But this is to the point where you actually need a fast CPU to achieve these kinds of frame rates as well. Anyway, this is really good, but it's probably not what I would utilize for that high refresh rate experience, because we do have access to the frame generation and multi-frame gen as well. So what I would do, since the baseline FPS with DLAA is already really high, 60 plus or 70 plus all of the time, that won't introduce a ton of input lag, and we are able to enable the DLSS frame generation. Here we go, guys. We're still at 1080p ultra settings. This is still the same down here, but now we have that DLSS frame generation enabled with DLAA and 2x frame generation. With 2x, this is perfect for a 120 to a 144 Hz experience, you know? Oh yes, we can't start counting the FPS because the 1% lows would be crappy, because MSI Afterburner and Riva Tuner can't really count the FPS with frame generation enabled because of the new way the frame generation paces the frames, or these new GPUs pace the frames. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's a buttery smooth experience. 1% lows would be really high, of course, and as you can see, it gets 130-ish frames per second. With 2x frame generation, it also minimizes the amount of artifacting present in the image, and in terms of input lag, I can't really notice this, because the last time that I tried Cyberpunk with frame generation, I actually counted the input lags and stuff like that, and you get like 5 milliseconds more of input lag. That's not noticeable, okay? We went from like 20 milliseconds or 25 milliseconds to 30 milliseconds. Who cares about that little difference? The smoothness, however, is really noticeable. And this is basically getting the same FPS as DLSS quality, but we can keep that DLAA, so that native 100% resolution scale that looks a little bit sharper than DLSS quality. It might actually look a tad bit softer than before without the frame generation, but honestly, it's not a major difference, and there is a major difference in the added smoothness. Yeah, this is definitely a go, guys, if you are looking for that higher refresh rate experience without a major hit to visual fidelity. Frame generation will give you that. Now, what if you have like a 240 Hz 1080p monitor? Then this comes in handy. 4x frame generation. There's also 3x, which is going to sit right in the middle of those two that I'm going to test, so I'm just going to skip that. But yeah, 4x frame generation does deliver 240 frames per second, or somewhere around that. Remember, we're still getting input lags of around the same as 70 to 80 frames per second. What did I fail at? I guess I'm used to failing at many things in life, but at least sometimes I know what I'm failing at. Hello! Goodbye, Bob! Oi, 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 oi! Come on, we killed him this time! There we go! Wait a second. Talk? I can talk to that Bob? Okay. Die again, Bob, with the explosion! Come on, it's gonna be beautiful. Nice. 220s, 240s. It's going to feel insanely smooth on a 240 Hz monitor, obviously. Still going to be sharp, and it works really well. You know, a lot of people like to hate on the frame generation, fake frames and so on, but I think it's a good technology. This wouldn't be possible without frame generation, the 240 Hz experience in Cyberpunk. Right? I do really like it, I just hate it when developers rely on it instead of optimizing their games, and also I hate it that Nvidia is relying on it to sell GPUs instead of increasing raw performance, because this card should have been faster. But anyways, that's it, guys. 2 times frame generation for 144 Hz monitors, 4 times frame generation for 240 Hz monitors, 3 times frame generation probably for like 180 Hz, 165 Hz monitors. Alright, and in terms of input lag, there's like 2 or 3 milliseconds of a difference between the 2 times and 4 times, so it's not going to be noticeable. In terms of visuals though, 2 times looks a little bit better and less artifacty. However, in this title, again, I can't really tell much of a difference. So yeah, that's it for 1080p ultra settings. Let's disable frame generation again, and let's set it to the ray tracing ultra preset. Disable DLSS first, and disable these pesky little options which enable themselves every single time. But this is it, guys. Ray Tracing Ultra preset. It enables all of these settings here under the ray tracing, which was disabled previously. I disabled frame gen. Let's restart the game to fully apply. Okay, so here we are now with that ray tracing ultra preset. It's extremely intensive. This is with TAA at 1080p native resolution. It looks a lot more fuzzy and blurry once again than what we just saw with DLAA, frame generation, DLSS quality even. Yeah, I don't really like this, guys. And this is where ray reconstruction, once we enable DLSS, will come in handy a lot, okay? To fix those low resolution or seemingly low resolution ray traced reflections. But yeah, I'm not too impressed with the visuals right now, honestly speaking, with the TAA crap over it. And the performance, well, yeah, it's 50s, 40s, it doesn't stutter at least. VRAM allocation is going over 9 gigabytes, 9.5 gigabytes actually. And the VRAM usage, the actual utilization of the game itself, is going over 8. So the RTX 5060 Ti 8GB model would already be struggling a little bit, running out of VRAM and lowering frame rate because of it. This is a no-no. I don't like this experience too much. And if you enable, for example, frame generation on top of 50 FPS, there would be a lot of added input lag and a lot of artifacting as well. So it's not a good fit for frame generation with these frames, all right? But what we can do is enable some DLSS and ray reconstruction as well in this case, because it will make everything look a lot better. Oh my god, just look at that. Look at the reflections on top of the car now. They're not fuzzy anymore, they're really high quality. They're still with DLAA, alright, but FPS are very similar to what we just saw with TAA, yet the game looks a lot better, especially with that ray reconstruction option enabled as well. This is sick, actually. Like the... Whew, so you gain quite a bit of visual fidelity here by enabling the ray tracing in this one, for sure. But again, with Ultra Settings preset, you could be getting like almost double the frame rate, 80 frames per second instead of 40-ish frames per second here. I mean, in this place it would drop into like 72 or something like that, but still, that's a vastly superior experience in terms of frame rate, right? This is okay, but it's pretty meh, in my opinion. But that's normal because ray tracing is, after all, very intensive of a technology. Let's stop it there. We can still make it better, of course, by using DLSS quality. Remember, frame generation would work on top of 40 to 50 FPS, but it would look artifacty and the input lag would definitely be super noticeable then. But here, with the quality DLSS enabled, we can finally get 80-ish frames per second. It's quite a bit softer. And with that DLSS ray reconstruction coming from 720p resolution to 1080p upscaling, you know, because of DLSS quality, these little stutters are autosaves, by the way. It's starting to look a little tiny bit like an oil painting, just a little bit, all right? It's not super bad by any means, and unlike a 24-inch 1080p display, it will look good still, but yeah, something is just a tad bit off, especially compared with the DLAA look. Like that was super crispy, super sharp, super beautiful, and right now there's a little bit of detail lacking here and there. That's still better than the TAA crap. And a lot of people played with TAA, of course, before the DLSS Transformer model came out. So yeah, people were fine with that experience, so of course you can definitely play like this. But yeah, let's enable that DLSS FG right now. Gotta restart the game. It's a little bit annoying that I need to restart every single time. Here we go, starting with 2x frame generation quality DLSS as well in the ray tracing ultra preset. So once again, visuals are very similar, just a tad bit softer. You can also increase the sharpness if you want to and make it a tad bit sharper, you know. Obviously it won't make up for the lack of detail, but it will be a little bit sharper. And over here with frame generation, yeah, it's exactly the same as we saw previously. So this GPU with DLSS quality with ray tracing ultra settings gets pretty much the same FPS as this GPU with 1080p native resolution ultra settings without ray tracing. And regardless of it being native frames or frame generation, it's pretty much going to be the same experience in terms of smoothness. Obviously, it's just a bit softer because of that DLSS quality instead of DLAA. If you're wondering about the DLAA result, I'm still gonna try it in just a little bit, okay? But yeah, this is going to be a high refresh rate experience now with the ray tracing enabled, so that's nice. Let's do 4x frame generation, and it puts us up into the 230s, 250s sometimes. While driving, it always gets higher FPS, or lower FPS actually, than while walking around. If you're not paying too much attention, this is going to be a super buttery smooth experience, of course, for a high refresh rate panel with ray tracing enabled. It just sucks a little bit to think that you are playing at 720p, being upscaled to 1080p, but still looks good, so no problems. A bit too soft maybe in my opinion on a 27-inch monitor, but on a smaller one, it should be fine. Let's try it with 2x FG and DLAA again, alright? Because this is going to be pretty intensive, and it's really pretty, by the way. Oh my god, okay. And input lag-wise, I thought it was going to suck. But this is not sucking, my friends. This is actually a pretty good experience. You know what? I really thought enabling DLSS would be the way to go. DLSS on quality, that is. With this ray tracing ultra preset enabled. For those 80 FPS or 70 plus FPS all over the time. But actually, they've improved the input lag of frame generation by so much that it works so well right now. Wow, I'm very impressed. Now, there is one thing that's going to be a bit annoying. That is the artifacting is going to be more noticeable here because the frame rate was less than 60 FPS at the baseline before enabling frame generation. It was 40 to 50. So there is going to be a little bit of frame jittering sometimes and a little bit of artifacting here and there in some elements of the picture. But I think it's worth having that and 80 FPS with this amount of input lag and these pretty over reflections. I think it's definitely worth it. Alright, I like this. I really do. Well, let's try it with 4x now. This is where the artifacting should start becoming really noticeable actually because of the baseline frame rate. You really need like 60 or 70 plus FPS all of the time to enable 4x frame generation without being able to notice a ton of artifacting. And over here, yeah, I can definitely notice it on the road right now. I can't really describe it, and I'm not sure if you guys can pick it up, but there's also a little bit of ghosting around the mirror of the car on the left. If you move around like this, especially near those crosswalks, yeah, you can definitely notice a bit of artifacting here. Still not absolutely terrible. It's not as bad as I thought it would be. Now, let's do path tracing. Oh, yes. I'm going to start with path tracing with DLAA, ray reconstruction, no frame generation. All right. This is going to be extremely demanding and even like a 5090 struggles with path tracing, let's be honest. And here we go, guys, with path tracing and DLAA enabled. Oh my goodness, this is pretty as hell. Holy crap. I mean, it was also very pretty with ultra settings and ultra ray tracing settings, but the path tracing just adds a little bit more to it. But of course, 31 at 29 FPS. It's unplayable without any sort of upscaling. And these are actually the FPS. It's a little bit slower, in fact, than the 5090 at 4K. So the 5090 at 4K resolution was getting 30, 31, 33 FPS sometimes. It's getting like 28, 29, 26. So dropping quite a bit from 30 FPS. That means that with enabling a little bit of DLSS here, we will make it playable. So let's do DLSS quality right away. All right. And we went from 30 FPS or 20s into the 40s. So a 50% improvement basically in performance. That's pretty good. I'm going to start counting the FPS now because it's actually playable. We can drive around like this. Obviously, I would never recommend you to utilize path tracing here with a 5060 Ti, even at 1080p resolution, which, might I add, I feel like this GPU shines a little bit better at 1440p resolution. We'll get there, of course. This is going to be a huge video, I'm just realizing. With the power of editing, we shall make it a less than an hour-long video. I hope. But anyways, let's keep on going. I would never pick this because Ray Tracing Ultra already looked really good. It was getting these FPS at native resolution with DLAA, actually, and not with DLSS quality. So it seems like, once again, we're seeing that DLSS quality plus path tracing is getting around the same FPS as DLAA plus Ray Tracing Ultra settings, okay, at 1080p resolution, that is. And the DLSS quality plus Ray Tracing Ultra settings gets the same FPS as Ultra settings without Ray Tracing and DLAA. So as you increase the settings preset by one notch, you need to reduce the quality of DLSS by one notch as well to match the previous resolution's native performance. This works, but it's not great. Still, though, this means that when we enable frame generation, it might actually become decent with 2 times, because with these FPS natively, 2 times frame generation was absolutely fine with ultra ray tracing settings. Let's do balanced DLSS though. This starts looking really bad actually. I don't recommend this. I can notice ghosting as well around the mirrors of the car right now. It's really low quality. I'd say this is worse quality than TAA. It's not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And then there's performance DLSS. If you want to achieve 60 plus 100% of the time, performance DLSS is the way to go with path tracing. But once again, this is only good if you are playing the game in like a Steam Deck's display, 7-inch display or something like that. Because if you have a computer monitor, the visuals will be way too low. So if you want ray tracing, stick to the ultra ray tracing stuff. Still, we'll need to check this with quality DLSS and DLSS frame generation, so let's do that and see how it looks and plays. Here we go, this is it with 2 times frame generation. Not too bad, 90s. Yeah, it's pretty much the same experience as before. I guess it's gonna start dropping into the 80s in just a little bit. A little bit better than 2 times frame generation plus DLAA on ray tracing ultra settings. But yeah, now it's with path tracing, so this makes the game actually good and smooth. Oh boy, and not too artifacty. Although once again, I can definitely notice a lot wrong with the picture at the moment. But the ray tracing ultra DLAA stuff with 2 times frame generation was definitely a lot better than this in terms of visual fidelity. So just use that, okay, if you are at 1080p resolution and want RT enabled. Now, I'm curious. Let's see it with 4 times. Oh boy. Okay, 160s. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing, but now with more artifacting caused by the frame generation, plus the artifacting caused by quality DLSS, it's not a good look. Okay, no, don't do this, don't do this. But I wanted to see this, guys. What about DLAA 2 times frame generation? Because the baseline here were 30 FPS, right? And now we're up into the 40s and 50s. Honestly, the input lag is definitely noticeable, but it's not too obnoxious. Once again, what magic did they do? Because this frame generation input lag is pretty good right now. All right, not too bad. What about 4 times? this should be the worst. Okay, because we start with a baseline of 30 FPS, and now with frame generation we made it 90 FPS. Yeah, there is a ton of artifacting everywhere. Holy crap, dude. I think even you guys with YouTube compression will be able to see that this... Yeah, look at around that tree, for example. My god. Oh my god, yeah, this sucks. Not because of the input lag, somehow that's still manageable for a lot of people, I think. And with a controller especially, it would be manageable. But because of the frame generation artifacting, it's way too much. Don't do this. Alright? But hey, that's it for the 1080p resolution. It's finally over. So let's change it to the ultra settings preset again. Turn this off and also turn these options off as well. And I'm gonna bump it up after I switch monitors to 1440p resolution. Here we are, we're at 1440p resolution utilizing the ultra settings with TAA, no DLAA right now, and no resolution scaling of course, so it's still native 1440p. Let's do this. Seems like it's still going to be 60 plus FPS, maybe not all of the time. It might actually dip down to the 50s in just a little bit, so that means that with DLAA enabled, it will definitely drop from 60 FPS. Maybe at 1440p, I feel like high settings is probably the way to go, just to make it a bit more consistent. And I think high settings with DLAA might look better than TAA with ultra settings here at 1440p, while maintaining those 60 plus FPS. Goodbye, Bob! My god, did we kill him? I'm not sure. No, we did not, of course. He almost never dies with one hit, even though this time we actually hit him, not the chair. Anyway, but yeah, I already saw it dropping slightly from 60 FPS. It's not a big deal, really. It feels smooth still, 57 there. With a little bit of an overclock to the GPU, for example, you can definitely achieve 60 plus all of the time, at least here in Night City. The DLC is a bit more intensive. But it works fine, right? It's just that I think I would utilize high settings instead. Now, the thing is, you can either lower it down to high and use DLAA, or use quality DLSS at 1440p, which should also look really good. But let's try DLAA at 1440p first with ultra settings. Yeah, this drops the FPS by like 10 frames per second, so it definitely makes it quite a bit worse, although with 2 times frame generation, this could be a really good experience. As we saw, like 50 FPS baseline is good enough for this game. Again, like this completely changes the look of the game once again. DLSS on DLAA is amazing stuff, but let's change it to DLSS quality and see how different it looks. I think it's very similar once again. So this is DLSS4, as you know. The quality of the transformer model is really good, and I guess there's no real need to play this with DLAA in high settings. You could, and it would achieve 60 plus FPS 100% of the time once again, because that's way less intensive than ultra settings. But if you want to keep the ultra settings with DLSS quality, it works really well. So I don't see why not use it, okay? I will have no problem recommend this, okay? And on a 1440p 27-inch monitor, the DLSS quality will also look really good. So yeah, 80 FPS now. This is a very good baseline to start enabling some frame generations. A very good baseline to just play the game like this if you want to. And even for 4 times frame generation, it will work absolutely fine like this. Oh boy, okay. The inner thoughts are winning, my friends. I really want to check it out with high settings anyways. Alright. So let's do high settings with DLAA here. High settings don't really require a restart, only if you start enabling ray tracings and the frame generations here. And here we go. This is the high settings with DLAA. Just gonna do a little run here to showcase that. Still looks really good. In terms of reflections, it still looks good enough as well, even though there's no ray tracing enabled now. And we're now getting 70 FPS. 70s, it might drop into the 60s, but it shouldn't drop from 60 FPS. So again, this is now native res with the best sharpness and the best detail, I guess, when it comes to resolution that you can get out of this game at 1440p right now, and it's 60 plus FPS all of the time anyways, so it is a pretty good experience like this indeed. Anyway, let's enable the frame generation here and quit the game, restart. Okay, this is it, guys. 1440p resolution, DLAA high settings with 2x frame generation here. All right, not ultra settings. And this is good for 100 plus FPS. I guess it was expected since we've already tried 70 to 80 FPS plus 2x FG in the past, previous resolutions and settings, you know. So this is going to be pretty much the same experience here, but it looks quite a lot sharper than anything that we've seen so far at 1080p resolution. This is great for 120 Hz, 144 Hz. I mean, maybe 144 Hz would be better with like 3x frame generation. Yep, it goes up to the 150s here. Really good stuff. 140s. But I think I would still keep it on 2x because it's smooth enough with 100 to 120 FPS all of the time, and that way you get less artifacting. And of course, if you have a really fast, high refresh rate experience or a monitor with like 240 Hz or 180 Hz, this is it. 4x frame generation with high settings will give you close to 200 FPS at times. Basically like 170 to 200 FPS most of the time here. So really smooth stuff, input lag is negligible, yada yada yada, you already know. Let's go ahead now and try it with ultra settings though. And the frame generation enabled 2x. And why does it enable the FSR stuff? Let's use DLAA here on ultra. So previously with these settings we were getting 40-ish FPS, I think. Ugh, it enabled... I thought it was looking funny there, so it was motion blur and all of these settings enabled. Okay, that's much better and sharper. Alright. But yeah, this gets us those 80 FPS with 2x frame generation, which, again, I still feel are very adequate for a good experience here in Cyberpunk 2077. Dropping into the 70s sometimes, a little bit slower than what we saw at 1080p resolution with the same baseline FPS, I think. But it still works really well. And if you want to keep those ultra settings, this is the way to go with DLAA and the native resolution as well. Obviously, with 4x, with DLAA, it's going to become pretty crappy in terms of the artifacting. Yeah, instantly I can notice some weirdness on the roads, objects around us, and no. Okay. I guess if you want less artifacting, you'll need to utilize DLSS quality here. 2x frame generation will give us 130s. Damn, it still looks really good, by the way. A little bit softer, of course, but it's 1440p, so quality DLSS looks really good at this resolution. DLSS4, that is. And yeah, it's now a higher refresh rate experience on ultra settings. Pretty good. Let's make it a little bit quicker, you know, because my voice is getting tired already. I'm sorry, guys. Oh boy, these videos are just way too long now that they've introduced frame generations, DLSSs, ray tracings, path tracings, 2x, 3x, 4x. It's way too much. These videos are way too long. Anyway, let's keep on going here. 200 FPS. With 200 FPS, it's definitely a lot less noticeable in terms of artifacting, although I can still notice something. But hey, it can handle it at like 190 plus all of the time, so if you want ultra settings, quality DLSS, high refresh rate, 240 Hz experience, or close to it, it can do it with the help of these, basically. So yeah, let's stop it there. Do ray tracing ultra now at the 1440p resolution. It's going to be really intensive. Let's start with DLAA. I'm skipping the TAA here. TAA is just crap, so who cares? You should use DLAA or quality DLSS. It looks better than TAA anyways. And yeah, this is it. Ultra preset, ray reconstruction. I want that enabled, of course. And let's restart to apply. All right, so DLAA, ray tracing ultra, 1440p. Yuck. 30 FPS, basically the same as path tracing with 1080p resolution, actually. Right? Yeah, it still drops into the 20s, not as much as path tracing at 1080p, I guess. 28, 29. Yeah, that previously dropped to like, what, 26, 27. Not usable here at native 1440p, which is to be expected. I mean, you'd need a 1490 or a 1590 to achieve 60 FPS using these settings at native 1440 without the use of the upscaling here or super resolution. But let's use quality DLSS at the same time. And now we're up into the 50s. Honestly, guys, I thought it was going to be a little bit better. Once again, like if it matched the RTX 4070 in performance, it would have gotten closer to 60 FPS, possibly 60 to 70 most of the time instead of 50 to 60. It is what it is. Card should have been faster. It's still playable, of course, and it looks really good with the DLSS quality plus ray reconstruction. I think ray reconstruction not only makes the reflections really pretty, a lot prettier than even native res without it, it also adds a bit of sharpening to the entire picture. But yeah, this is still not very good FPS-wise, right? 50 to 60 most of the time, dropping into the 40s sometimes. Balanced DLSS might push it to 60, yeah, okay. Not too terrible, although it still drops into the 50s, of course. But this is a little bit of better baseline to enable frame generation. Although, I think I will still enable frame generation over quality DLSS because it just looks a little bit sharper. Once again, it looks a little bit better to me. But I think I will also try it with the balanced DLSS and frame generation as well. So, just adding more settings. See, everything is very viable of an option, basically. Oh my gosh, this video is gonna be 2 hours long. Damn, I'm sorry, guys. Balanced DLSS works pretty well, so if you don't want to use FG, this is decent. However, performance DLSS starts becoming really low resolution here, so I wouldn't really do this. It gets you up into the 70s though, but this is a bit too low to the point where the internal resolution is now 720p, so yeah, on a 1440p display, it's not going to be very impressive visual quality-wise compared to what we saw previously. Yeah, again, quality DLSS plus that 2x FG will be the way to go. So let's go ahead and try that. Frame generation, restart. Yeah, this is the stuff, guys. 2x frame generation, quality DLSS, 1440p, ray tracing ultra settings, 90 FPS here. Feels snappy. It looks good, it's sharp, it's detailed, it's not artifacty. Yeah, this is the way to go, I think. The input lag is totally acceptable, at least to me. Goodbye, Bob! And yeah, it works really well, guys. And we got all of those reflections, ray tracing enabled, the lighting looks great, everything. Ray reconstruction is enabled as well. I think it's a very good balance at 1440p between visuals, performance, input lag, snappiness, artifacting. It works really well like this. Let's try it with 4x frame generation now. And of course, with less than 200 FPS with frame gen enabled, artifacting will be more noticeable. It's more smooth, and in terms of input lag, it's not really noticeable, the difference between 2x and 4x here, but yeah, with the amount of artifacting that we have now compared to 2x, and the fact that it's just slightly softer picture quality-wise once again, this is not something I would do, but if you wanted to, you can max out like a 144Hz monitor like this. And now if you're wondering about DLAA with 2x frame generation, that's gonna suck. Oh boy. Yep, 50s. Artifacting is very noticeable here, because the baseline FPS were 30s basically, and it's the same talk as previously when we were getting these FPS, I think with path tracing at 1080p resolution with 2x frame generation. It just looks off, it doesn't perform very well, it has input lag that's definitely a lot more noticeable than before, although still usable, but no, just no, don't do this, okay? But what about the path tracing, guys? We shall try that out. Let's disable frame generation here. Let's go with DLAA first. Yep, path tracing with DLAA, native 1440p resolution is getting us less than 20 frames per second. It is insanely demanding. Holy crap. Oh my god. Oh my god, this is so bad. Yeah, this is completely terrible and unplayable, obviously. Let's use quality DLSS with path tracing at 1440p. I mean, if it wasn't doable and if I didn't recommend path tracing even at 1080p resolution, obviously at 1440p it's going to be a lot worse. And this is exactly what we're seeing here. So quality DLSS gives us 30s, drops into the 20s probably, right? It's about to drop. Yep, 29 FPS there. Oh, come on! I missed Bob there. Also, we haven't seen Jack yet in this video, guys. We need to see Jack. Here he is. Beautiful Jack in Cyberpunk 2077. He is here. Immortalized. Beautiful in all his glory. The lighting looks sick inside of here as well. Path tracing does look really pretty, but it's way beyond diminishing returns. So yeah, it drops into the 20s, not good. Balanced DLSS here at path tracing. Yeah, I don't know what it is, guys. With ultra ray tracing and balanced DLSS, it actually ends up looking better in terms of sharpness and artifacting than balanced DLSS with path tracing. Path tracing just has more artifacting. But yeah, for a 30 plus FPS experience all of the time, you will need balanced DLSS at 1440p and path tracing enabled at the same time. No, it's just, again, way beyond diminishing returns. Performance DLSS then is even worse in terms of visual fidelity, of course. Now we have very soft visuals, 45 FPS to 50, yeah, going over 50 sometimes, but I mean, it's way too low for 1440p resolution. So let's go back to like balanced here, try some frame generation on top of balanced. It's gonna run like crap, honestly, because it was 30s baseline FPS. And here we go with 2 times frame generation and that balanced DLSS. We're in the 70s, not too terrible, but again, artifacting is noticeable. It was already noticeable even without frame generation, so it's a little bit more emphasized now. It's a little bit softer of a picture quality as well. It's balanced DLSS after all. And in terms of FPS, it drops into the 60s at times, and it's in the 70s sometimes as well, which is not enough for a good input lag free or non-noticeable input lag experience. Ray tracing ultra is where this shines at 1440p with quality DLSS plus 2 times FG, or even 1080p. 1080p with ray tracing ultra DLAA 2 times FG. That was really pretty as well, and it had low input lag. It was fast of an experience. It was good. This is not good. So let's exit now to the main menu and try some 4K resolution. Here we go, 3840 by 2160, guys. We're on the high preset. Again, no frame generation, no DLSS. This is with TAA, all right? At 4K, TAA doesn't look bad, okay? It still looks fuzzy, which is weird. But I think it's totally usable, and DLAA would be way too intensive anyways to play at 4K res with a 5060 Ti. So I would likely avoid that, but quality DLSS will look perfect, basically, like native 4K resolution. So that's the way to go here, okay? But anyway, yeah, around here, 40-ish frames per second, 30s, 1% lows. It's stable, it's playable. The 8GB model would be running out of VRAM slightly, at least the allocated VRAM is over 8GB. But yeah, this is stable, it's doable. It's not 60 though. However, as I said, quality DLSS is here to save the day. It's DLSS quality, it looks nicer. Yeah, I think it still looks nicer at 4K than the TAA stuff. Reflections are a bit fuzzy still, but everything else is a little bit sharper actually. And it's 60 plus FPS most of the time. It's actually dropping into the low 60s, so that means that in Bob's roundabout, it will drop into the 50s unfortunately, but a little bit of an overclock or maybe balanced DLSS, which will still look amazing with DLSS4 at 4K resolution. Yeah, it will definitely be able to keep those 60 plus. Yeah, that's pretty stable, I like it. Yeah. Goodbye, Bob. Bob. I said goodbye, Bob. What am I doing? How can I get my weapon out and kill Bob with my gun? Oh, there we go. Oh, hello. Okay, I don't have a reticle or a crosshair. All right, but I got my weapon out. Yes, I am pointing my way. I disabled the HUD elements, so it's prettier to look at on YouTube, you know. But yeah, this is it, guys. 59, 58 FPS. Sometimes, most of the time, it's 60, 62. 1% lows are really similar as well to the average, or close enough to the averages. And I didn't really see it drop from like 57 FPS, so it's really stable of an experience like this. Let's try it with balanced though. And yeah, balanced DLSS will give us around 10 more FPS than quality DLSS did. And it still looks amazing to me. So really sharp, really detailed, better than TAA. Goodbye, Bob! Oh my god, we sent him flying, but he's still alive, right? He's always alive, I don't understand. How can he withstand so much damage? I don't know. Maybe he's not alive, actually, this time. Alright, 69 FPS average. Great stuff. And over here, usually drops by a lot as well. Wait a second, get out of the way. Over here. No, okay, it's only like 67 or something like that. Pretty stable, really stable stuff. I can definitely recommend this even for a 4K monitor. Now, Ray Tracing Ultra. Yeah, that's gonna suck a bit. I think we should start with Performance DLSS in the Ray Tracing Ultra preset, Ray Reconstruction as well. It looks better than DLSS Balanced without Ray Reconstruction. Once again, like the sharpness added by Ray Reconstruction is so good. Damn, that's pretty crazy. However, the frame rate isn't amazing, so unless you're playing on like a TV with VRR and the controller, for example, where you can't really notice the slowdowns or the FPS dropping from 60 much, with mouse and keyboard, I don't think I would choose this, but it looks insane right now. The quality of this DLSS4 with Ray Reconstruction in Cyberpunk is amazing. Now, 40 to 50 FPS almost all of the time. Also, we could do like ultra performance DLSS. However, this starts looking way too low resolution quality wise, and you can start seeing a lot of shimmering and noise in some areas of the image. So yeah, this is definitely a lower resolution, noticeably lower resolution. And if you want to try like DLAA, let's try that. It dies. It basically dies. 14 FPS. Yep, that's not good. That's not good. Quality though, 30s, 20s. Also pretty terrible of an experience. And balanced, 30s. Okay, comfortably above 30 FPS, I guess. Maybe not so comfortably. Sometimes it drops into the low 30s. But yeah, the performance DLSS stuff with Ray Reconstruction at the same time is just top notch. However, maybe with frame generation we can save it a little bit with 2 times. Oh boy, there's a bit of screen tearing, I think. G-Sync is not kicking in for some reason. It sometimes doesn't with this capture card problems. But anyway, it gets 70-ish frames per second. Now, unfortunately, guys, this means that things are a bit flickery sometimes. It's artifacting. Artifacting is happening because the frame rate baseline was a bit too low there for us to enable the frame generation on top of. However, if you can look past the artifacting issues here and there and the pop-ins that are a little bit more noticeable now for some reason, I think with mouse and keyboard, I would not do this, but if I was sitting back on a sofa playing my game on a TV, you know, with a controller especially, so I wouldn't notice the fluctuations, not the fluctuations, but the input lag that much, I think I would be fine with this. And it's really smooth as well because it's 60 plus FPS. And once again, I wish this was a bit closer to that 5070 GPU and even the 4070 GPU, but it isn't. Yeah, if it was, it would be a much better experience at 4K resolution. But hey, Everything was playable so far, aside from path tracing, of course, so I can't really be too mad about this. And now you've seen the performance with this GPU, but what about path tracing at 4K resolution? Let's use DLAA first. Gotta restart. I'm not using Frame Gen here because there's no point. We won't get good baseline FPS with path tracing anyways. Oh my god. We're getting in. Oh, the motion blur. 9 FPS. You gotta be kidding. This is, yeah. Okay. I mean, 5090 gets 30 FPS with these settings, so what were you expecting, right? Whoa. Okay, let's do performance DLSS right away. Path tracing, guys. Gets us 20s. Oh, somehow after seeing 9 and 8 FPS, 20s feels playable. So maybe that's the trick. If you want to use path tracing, play with 10 FPS first, and then you unlock your FPS, get 25 FPS plus, and it's playable. It will feel playable. Oh my gosh. So Ray Tracing Ultra is the way to go, overall. And if you don't like ray tracing, there are some very high refresh rate experiences to be had without ray tracing enabled with a 5060 Ti. That's been it. Thanks very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. It was a huge one. But yeah, if you actually are still watching this and you watch the entire thing through, one cookie to you, you're the best. Alright. I'll catch you in the next one very soon. Love you all. Bye-bye.